So, Kemi Badenoch held a press conference yesterday morning about the early release scheme, and I want to be careful with this one because most of what happened in that room deserves to be treated seriously. I'm being honest, I do not like this. I do not like the way that they do this and the way that they use these real people and their real stories for political point scoring. She sat alongside 6 women, survivors of rape and child abuse and grooming gangs, and who described in detail, I'm not going to replay, what it means to get a letter telling you that the man who did this is getting out early. Their testimony is real and it's devastating, and if you want to hear it, which I suggest you do, the full press conference will be linked in the description below, and you should watch it from them in their own words and not filtered through me. This video is about the people at the table who weren't the victims, because the numbers they brought into that room, sitting next to those women, do not survive contact with the public record. Now, I've watched Badenoch run through this exact format before. So first, what she's actually demanding, because parts of it are more substantial than the yesterday's morning headline suggested. Her position is Burnham's pause of the scheme is nothing until the commencement order is revoked, because until the law changes, roughly 6,500 prisoners, her side's minimum estimate, are released from a 2nd of September. Revoke the order today, pass the emergency legislation before the date, and she'll whip her party to help it through.
Whatever Andy Burnham says, if he does not revoke the commencement order, there is no pause. That's the thing that starts it. If it's not revoked, there is no pause.
Now, on this narrow point, she actually has a case. A pause announced in a TV interview is a press line. Revoking a commencement order is an act of government. If Burnham's pause is real, there's a mechanism to prove it, and as a recording, he hasn't used it. It's fair to challenge Labour, and, they should answer for it. And I'll go further, because it cuts against the government too. The Ministry of Justice still hasn't published how many offenders in each category are actually covered by this scheme. Mullins said that the opposition, the press and the public are working from the Telegraph's calculations because the government won't release its own figures. And inside the same press conference, the numbers range from 6,500 dangerous offenders down to a fewer than 2,000 sexual offenders, depending on which estimate was being cited. That gap exists because the government have left a vacuum. 9,000 victims got letters. They can print 9,000 letters, but they can't publish a table. If Labour wants to complain about scaremongering, the remedy has been available the entire time. Just publish the numbers. So that's the credit. Now on for their record. Badenoch opened by explaining that her party understood the prison crisis because they lived it.
When we were in government, we saw the challenge. We created 14,000 new prison places. That was nowhere near enough.
14,000 is what you get if you count everything her government opened and ignore everything that they closed. The Ministry of Justice own transparency data, published because the Lord Chancellor cited it in Parliament, puts the build at 13,009 between 2010 and 2023, and the closures at 12,514 over the same period. Net changes across 14 years of Conservative government, 482 places. The National Audit Office, examining a slightly different window, found 1,005. Boris Johnson pledged 20,000 new places in 2021, and by the time the party left office, it had delivered around 6,500 of them, with the programme running at 4.2 billion over budget. When Labour took over, the prison population stood at 88,521, with the male estate down to around 100 spare beds. Every early release scheme since, the Conservatives' own included, exists because of that arithmetic. And a journalist put exactly this to her, Sky's Lucy McDade, in the room, to her face.
Kemi Badenoch, is this crisis in prisons one of, if not the worst failing of the Conservative government of 14 years? Because you spoke there about building thousands of new prison places. Actually, it was a net increase of 500, and that was before the coronavirus pandemic. These warnings were there.
We did some things. As I said, it wasn't enough, and I'm sorry about that, but I can't fix the past. What I can do is come up with solutions for now and for tomorrow. Asking me to look at what happened, 10 years before I became an MP and so on, it's not really what my job is. It's not really what my job is now.
She can't fix the past. She was a minister from 2020 and sat in the cabinet for the final 2 years of that government. The capacity failure being described happened around her on her watch in a government she served until the day it lost. 10 years before I became an MP covers none of it. And then she reached for the comparison, and this is the moment that decided I need to make this video.
What I do know is that even under our early release schemes, I think 10,000 prisoners over 14 years is what we released. Labour has released how many in 2 years?
Well, I think it's 60,000 in this round.
So 60,000 under 2 years of Labour versus 10,000 under 14 years of Conservatives. This is a scandal.
10,000 over 14 years. The Conservative early release scheme, end of custody supervised licence, released 13,325 prisoners between October 2023 and September of 2024. 1 year. The real single figure is larger than 14-year total that she gave. In a press conference whose second half was built on the accusation that this government is dishonest with numbers. It's infuriating. The ECSL excluded sexual and serious violent offenders, and so did the first version of Labour's scheme. The women in that room are receiving letters because of what's changed since, and their anger at this government is legitimate, and this government has earned every word of it. The handling alone, the impersonal circulars, the phone calls that couldn't answer basic questions about exclusion zones, victims finding out that the letter meant what it meant from Channel 4 is a failure that Labour owns entirely, and no amount of pointing at the last government's record excuses that. If exposing this lot is your thing to do, then obviously subscribe, because I do follow these things so you don't have to. And the membership is open as well if you'd like to support the channel, and you're able to do so. But here's what I keep coming back to. Badenoch has run this format before. In February, it was bereaved parents and the social media ban. Again, real people, real grief out front, while her own detail collapsed under a single question. This time, it's abuse survivors, and the question that she couldn't answer was her own party's record. Those women said more than once that this shouldn't be party political, and they're right. They deserved a politician who came to that table with clean numbers. Instead, they got a leader whose party spent 14 years adding fewer than 500 prison places, ran its own early release scheme in secret, and now is demanding urgency from the people left holding the consequences. Her party let the fire take hold for over a decade. She's entitled to say that the fire brigade is too slow. I mean, someone should. But she shouldn't say that while pretending that she wasn't in the building, opening the doors and letting it spread. The victims deserve emergency legislation debate on honest terms from both parties, and so far, neither have offered it. These survivors want a platform and they want someone to hear their case. Yet, they're sitting next to a woman whose party created this problem in the first place, and she didn't even have the responsibility or the decency to admit that. And she's run this exact press conference format before. Victims out front, her own detail collapsing under one question. Last time the question was about what she just handed her 9-year-old. And you can see that video on screen now. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button. And I'll see you next time.